Let's see if we can go back to Ramallah, to Fadi Quran, who helped to organize, a youth organizer at the Kalandia checkpoint protest on Sunday. He is a master's candidate in law and human rights at Birzeit University in the West Bank. Fadi, talk about your participation in the protest and why it was called.
So we, as a youth movement, called for the protest because, as many of you know, there are about 7 million Palestinian refugees who just want to go home, and they've been unable to go home for the last 63 years. So at the protest, initially what you had is a lot of people who are my generation, 23 years old, carrying or wheeling their grandparents to the border so that they can finally take them back and they can return to a normal life where they are free, where they live justly, and where they can pursue happiness. And we organized using many different methods, including, social networking sites. But most importantly, we were on the ground. We were going house to house. We were speaking to people. We were speaking with community leaders. And on the 15th, we had a bit over 1,000 people who began to march down from the main refugee camp, which is surrounded by the Israeli apartheid wall, towards the entrance that takes them into Jerusalem, which is currently cut off to 90% of the Palestinians that live in the West Bank for ethnic reasons.
Can you talk about the issue of nonviolence in these protests, Fadi?
So we train and we plan to use nonviolence from now on in a very strategic manner, because we've been inspired with what has happened in Tunisia and what happened in Egypt, and also by the civil rights movement in the South and by Gandhi against colonialism. And yesterday's protest, for example, began by people from all age groups, from all different stratas of society, who were marching peacefully towards the checkpoint. And we were prepared. We had trained to being shot at. We were trained at, being hit by the police or by the Israeli military. And we actually, most of our training and experience happens when we go to places like Nabi Saleh, where Mr. Whitman was shot the other day. And we believe that through nonviolence, through using Martin Luther King strategies and Gandhi strategies, we will be able to achieve freedom. And we're not going to back up until we do reach that goal.
Do you see this as the beginning of a third intifada, Fadi?
Currently, I don't think it's going to be a third intifada or uprising in the sense that we saw in the first intifada in 1988 and in 2000. I see that what's going to develop now is something more similar to the civil rights movement in the South in the United States in the 1960s, where it wasn't an ongoing uprising. It was more of a different events, people in their own communities organizing the, freedom rides or organizing boycott campaigns. That's what we're going to begin seeing in the West Bank and Gaza and in the 1948 territories and even in refugee camps. So it's going to be that type of organic grassroots movement and not an all-out uprising. Now, I think that if at some point our goals are not being achieved, if freedom still seems far away, then the pressure that we all feel as Palestinians due to Israeli oppression will likely lead us to an all-out uprising. But I think in the next maybe month, 2 months, it's just going to be this type of escalating civil rights movement, people demanding equality, people demanding justice.
Fadi Quran, I wanted to get your response to the Prime Minister, the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, who tried to use the incident in the north, in the Golan Heights, with Palestinians coming across the border from Syria to strengthen his campaign, PR campaign in Washington. He said this is not a struggle over the 1967 borders, but a challenge to the existence of the State of Israel, which they describe as a catastrophe that must be rectified, referring to the Arabic term Nakba, or catastrophe, that you call the establishment of the State of Israel. Why do you call it that, Fadi?
the Nakba or the catastrophe doesn't refer to the establishment of the State of Israel. It refers to the ethnic cleansing of over 700,000 Palestinians that were basically either murdered or kicked out of their homes when the State of Israel was created. Now, the connection, I would say, between the creation in Israel and ethnic cleansing leads some people to use the creation of Israel and rhetorically to make it seem like the Palestinians are against the Jewish people or anti-Semitic, or they want to throw the Jews in the sea. Really what the movement yesterday signifies, I think, is a much larger humanistic type of approach where people are saying, listen, we want our rights, we want freedom, we want justice, and we want dignity. And we're not going to give up until we achieve those goals. And I think what most Americans, and especially American decision makers in Congress and in the Senate, need to understand that what the Palestinian people are demanding isn't something that is barbaric. They're demanding the values that make America great. They're demanding democracy. They're demanding freedom. They're demanding the opportunity to pursue happiness. The refugees that came to the border yesterday didn't come carrying weapons. They came with their flesh. They came with their bodies, and all they wanted to do was return home and live peacefully and return to a normal life. That the creation of Israel, because it was created under this ideology that was racist and said that we need to get rid of the Palestinians, caused them to leave out. They're challenging that ideology, the ideology of racism, and they're not challenging anything else. What we're demanding is simple. It's freedom. It's justice.
Fadi Quran, I want to thank you for being with us, youth leader in Ramallah who helped organize the Kalandia checkpoint protest Sunday, master's candidate in law and human rights at Birzeit University in West Bank. When we come back, we'll be joined by Sharif Abdel-Quddus in Cairo, where there were mass protests in front of the Israeli embassy. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. Back in a minute.